Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mujiburrahman. I'm a PhD student in Charles Darwin University, and today I'll be discussing a topic about developing an inclusive multi-hazard early warning system in Indonesia. Why this is an important topic? Because the current situation in Indonesia right now is the president and the ministries are preparing a presidential decree on a national multi-hazard early warning system. After academic review done by the government, we saw that a major gap is related to the people with disabilities are not included within this early warning system, whereas they are one of the most important people to protect in Indonesia. So, as you can see, the top part, that is people with disabilities are living in disaster-prone regions in Indonesia. The top map, the red, is highly concentrated, or a high percentage of people with disabilities living in the Java Island, Sumatra, South Sulawesi, and the eastern part. And as we can see in sunset, this is the risk map, or a multi-hazard risk map of where are the danger spots. So if we overlay these two maps together, we can see that there is a high number of population, that is people with disabilities, living in disaster-prone area. So that's why if any early warning system wants to be developed, it needs to consider people with disabilities. In Indonesia, we face various types of disasters. The predominant type of disasters is hydrometeorological disasters. The majority is the floods, landslides, high tides, destructive winds, whereas a small portion is the geological hazards. Currently, the approach of the Indonesian government is making single hazard early warning system. You have your landslide early warning system, you have your tsunami warning system, but there has been efforts to try to create a multi-hazard early warning system. Whereas on the other hand, we see that there is multiple types of disabilities, visual, movement, hearing, and each type of disabilities will influence on the type of early warning system used. And various research has already conducted what is the most appropriate type of early warning system. One from the national and one that could be more personal. So basically what I want to try to answer is what's the current legal framework in Indonesia about people with disabilities or multi-hazard early warning system. The second part is what's the institutional arrangements, what's the relationship between organizations and people, and finally what's the challenges in trying to developing this inclusive multi-hazard early warning system. As you can see, the government of Indonesia has tried to uphold the rights through various legislations, but the most significant one was by a small district in Indonesia since 2008 has issued a regulation about the rights of people with disabilities before the national government even thought about creating a national law about people with disabilities and disaster management. The reason why in 2008 this district has a regulation is because the strength of the disabled people organization at the local level. So the grassroots voice advocating to the local government push to get a regulation about people with disabilities upholding their rights. Unfortunately, at this time, issues related to DRR has not been inserted in this law. After another side from the civil society movement pushed for ratifying at the national level, pushed for more regulations about the participation of people with disabilities at the national level in disaster management, and also involvement of schools and special schools and inclusive schools to be more DRR. So that's the current legislation. And also in the last couple of years it has been adopted at the provincial level, only 2 provinces. So currently Indonesia has 34 provinces and only 2 adopted a special regulation about people with disabilities, which has a concept of DRR. Whereas at the district level, we have 500 districts in Indonesia, districts and municipalities, but we only have 2. So it's a very minimum push at the grass level for policy change. But at the national level, the infrastructure is already there. On to my next point. What about the arrangements? This is my modified version, or this is the framework that I try to propose to the government. The government thinks that early warning systems, or a multi-hazard early warning system, is only one way, from the technical agencies to the people. And when they look at the people, their design, all of this was just man. This block is just man. Whereas in reality, that's not the case. So this is something that we have to try to push for. Early warning system is a complicated network. It is network within networks, and it's not just a simple chain of information. So this is, we try to modify this with the latest concept from the multi-hazard early warning system from the MWO, Meteorological Weather Organization, which has been published in 2018. So we use that framework where they focus more on feedback for improvements from the community, something lacking from the Indonesian government draft. So as you can see, we try to make it into a people-centric multi-hazard early warning system where risk knowledge and hazard monitoring is in understanding the risks is in one aspect, and this is based on the Bonn concept in Bonn conference in 2006. And then the next element of a key early warning system, people-centered warning system, is about the dissemination of the warning and capacity to respond. So those are the four factors. So how are people with disabilities are learning the risk around them? The national government already created a risk map of the entire of Indonesia, which can be seen up until the district level. And this is a map for multiple hazards, but since it's a web-based map, we can see for each type of hazard, for landslide, for floods, and for others. And how do we utilize this is that we let the people with disabilities and the DPOs discuss and talk and map out in the community level what is directly to them. And the innovation here is that in the past there is no specific institution, but now one of the disaster management agency created a disability service unit. The disaster management organization has a disability unit where it's a volunteers of people with disabilities, where they are the ones taking in charge, understanding the risk and the entire process of the early warning system based on their abilities. Yeah. Okay, and this is the infrastructure at the national level. We have the hydrometeorological hazard. This is from the national level, and we have the magma system. So the two types of early warning system, which is trying to be multiple, is geological disasters from earthquake, landslide, volcano eruptions, and up there is the weather-related or rain-related. So this is the picture of what's happening at the national level and for the government, but also there is applications at the individual level, which is, this is the way to empower the people with disabilities to know when is the actual disaster coming. This is to understand the risk, but unfortunately very low amount of people installed. And this is for the meteorological warnings, and that's for the geological hazards and warnings. So we can see by utilizing this technology and using assistive devices, you can help people with disabilities prepare for a disaster. Now, what about warning dissemination? During the latest earthquake in Lombok, when there was a tsunami earthquake and a tsunami warning, unfortunately it's not inclusive. So it has no explanation for people with disabilities. But after the tsunami warning was released, and then the next day, it starts to pop up sharing information which is more inclusive. So our recommendation is it should have been from the very start that the warning dissemination and not just reporting about the damages of a certain area. That's the future improvements. And the quickest way to find information for everyone in time of a disaster is through the social media, because at that time, a couple of minutes after the large earthquake, the power was out, so it would be difficult to get access to this mass media. And finally, the capacity to respond. So Handicap International and ACB and many disabled people organization has a twin-way approach. Build the capacity of the local government, how to adapt to evacuating people with disabilities, and also give knowledge to caregivers and people with disabilities to be empowered to evacuate and know what to do in times of disaster and be the one that is the priority to be evacuated. So we have, this is the pictures of the type of activities. This is a person with hearing impairment, with seeing impairment, and he is coordinating because he's using listening to the warning and sharing the information. And this is types of simulation drills conducted by the disability service units of evacuation, and this is for the special schools that also involved in this building the capacity to respond. So in an early warning system, it's not just about getting information and spreading it. It's about how the community actually responds to that. It becomes a key component of early warning system. And finally, what is the challenges that we see? So first we have challenges related to the access to the services. We find that there's a difficulty to access these early warning system, especially that only 2 districts and 2 provinces have the legal regulations. We see that acceptance or involvement of the community, of people with disabilities, or just engaging them in activities of understanding the risk, becoming a volunteer, is a bit difficult. And also to improve policy. It works if there's a strong DPO, disabled people organization, but if it's without that, it's a bit difficult to push the agenda of inclusive in the region or in the areas. And final point is that yes, there is policies and laws at the national level, but doesn't translate to the local level. And we say that yes, there's various institutions, but it usually relates to the local organization, local government, and the push from the DPOs. And finally, we see that there is challenges related to the access, acceptance, and policy to make this more inclusive. So, what's my recommendation? This is the last slide. There needs to be increasing research, because social inclusion is not just about people with disabilities. You have other vulnerable groups, so this needs to be expanded. We also should try to do a social network analysis on the various stakeholders in the early warning system. For practices, it's just the involvement of people with disabilities in the risk analysis and risk understanding in the entire process. And for policy, we believe that there should be a stronger decentralization of policies for the early warning system. So thank you very much for listening to my speech. Okay, so